Imagine living in a quiet American town where kids ride bikes on dusty roads, neighbors know each other by name, and life feels stable. Then one day, the government shows up and says, "You can't live here anymore. It's too dangerous. No war, no crime wave, just invisible poison beneath your feet." This is the true story of Times Beach, Missouri, a real American town that was so toxic it was erased from the map. Times Beach began like many working-class towns in the United States. It sat along the Meramec River in Missouri, not far from St. Louis. Families moved there for affordable homes, peace, and a slower pace of life. By the 1970s, the population had grown into the thousands. But the town had a constant problem: flooding. When the river rose, muddy water would wash over the roads. When it dried, thick dust filled the air. Dust control became a daily concern for residents, and the local government, TO, solved this. The town made what seemed like a practical, money-saving decision. They hired a contractor to spray oil on the dirt roads to keep the dust down. It was cheap, effective, and widely used in rural areas at the time. Nobody asked too many questions. Nobody imagined there could be a deadly downside. But that oil wasn't ordinary oil. It was industrial waste, and it contained one of the most dangerous chemicals ever created. The chemical was dioxin, an extremely toxic compound linked to cancer, birth defects, immune system damage, and death. Even tiny amounts can be lethal. Dioxin doesn't smell. You can't see it. And once it's in the soil, it doesn't simply disappear. In Times Beach, it was everywhere, sprayed repeatedly on roads, playgrounds, and even horse arenas. Soon, strange things began happening. Animals started dying without explanation. Horses collapsed. Dogs became sick. Chickens stopped laying eggs. People developed rashes, skin burns, headaches, and unexplained illnesses. But there was no clear warning, no official announcement, no urgent evacuation. Life continued as usual. For years, while residents unknowingly lived on contaminated land, it wasn't until federal agencies like the EPA and CDC began investigating similar incidents elsewhere that Times Beach caught national attention. Soil tests revealed shockingly high levels of dioxin, far beyond what was considered safe. Experts concluded that Times Beach was one of the most toxic places in America. The media exploded with the story. Suddenly, a small Missouri town was making headlines across the country. In 1982 and 1983, the U.S. government made an unprecedented decision. Under presidential authorization, the federal government offered to buy out every resident in Times Beach. Families were told to leave their homes permanently. The town was officially disincorporated. Times Beach, as a functioning community, ceased to exist. No protest could stop it. The risk was simply too great. Houses were demolished. Streets emptied. Schools closed forever. The town's name was removed from most maps. What remained were memories, birthdays, weddings, childhood summers, all tied to a place people could never return to. For many families, the buyout money couldn't replace what was lost: a sense of home and trust. Cleaning up Times Beach took years and cost billions of dollars. Contaminated soil was excavated and incinerated in one of the largest environmental cleanup operations in U.S. history. Eventually, the land was declared safe. Today, the area is part of a state park. People hike and bike there, often unaware they're walking over the remains of a vanished town. Times Beach stands as a powerful reminder of how a single cost-cutting decision can destroy an entire community. It raises uncomfortable questions about regulation, corporate responsibility, and government oversight. Safety versus savings. Speed versus caution. And whether something like this could still happen today in America. That if stories like this make you think differently about risk, money, and decisions made behind closed doors, you're in the right place. Subscribe to the channel for more real stories where finance, power, and human lives collide. Because sometimes, the most expensive mistakes aren't counted in dollars, but in entire towns lost forever.